we're gonna brew some batch brew. So what do you need to brew a batch brew? Well, you need your batch brewer. We're gonna specifically use this because I'm gonna show you some cool new settings. You need a vacuum pot. Vacuum pots come in lots of different shapes and sizes. This is a little baby one. There's a vacuum of air in between the dual walls. And that is what insulates the coffee. There's no physical insulation in there. It's a vacuum of oxygen. So don't drop them. If you notice it's got a dent, could indicate that it's not gonna be thermally stable. Brew basket, filter papers, these are special Fetco papers, and some filter roasted coffee. So we've got RFF is our recommendation for filter, or our DSS, the stuff that comes in the black bag, is also filter coffee as well. You could use one of our RFEs or our FAM coffees, but generally I would say try and find an RFF from our lineup. So this one's espresso, and that's filter. The like darker roast ground as espresso, nice and fluffy. And then this is our filter roast that we're going to use on the Fetco. It's ground more like coarse table salt. When I'm brewing filters with the batch brewer, I use 60 grams of coffee per litre, and I'm doing a 1.5 litre batch today, so I want to make that 90 grams. I'm going to make sure that it's clean, which it is, and pop in a single Fetco filter paper. So you can see how those little fins are kind of holding it off the edge of the basket. I'm going to give this a quick rinse with some hot water. Preheat this sucker. Check this out. How good is it having hot water on demand? But we're good to go now. So I pop my straw in, put my 90 grams exactly of coffee into my brew basket. See there's a little mound. I'm just gonna gently settle that, carefully slide that in. And then I'm gonna press go on this. So batch 1.5 litres, and start. So just like with any normal filter brew that you would do by hand, you can set a bloom time, how long it takes, how long it's going to rest after it's bloomed, and the volume of water it's going to bloom with. And then afterwards you can set kind of how many pours it's going to dispense the rest of that water over. So if you've got a 2 litre brew and you set it to 10 pours plus the bloom, you can kind of divide that up however you want. We've got hot water hitting the top of this coffee. It's draining through, and just before it's completely drained all the way through, more hot water is being dispensed again, which is ideal. Sometimes with more or less pulses, you might notice a few pauses where it stops pouring out the bottom of the basket, and that could be something you might want to change if you want a more consistent brew. It's also different for every coffee. So there's no like golden setting. Always do 7 pulses. That might work for one coffee, and then it might drain through for another. So one thing they don't do as well, I think, is give you the temperature that they're telling you that they're giving you. You might have a Fetco that says it's giving you like 98 degree water. When I've tested that, I've found that it's often quite a few degrees below the temp that it's set at. This just clicked, made a little noise, like a click sound. That was this little pin in the side here, flicking back up into the Fetty. So now we can remove this basket, which we couldn't do before. First thing I notice is all of the edges are kind of sitting upright. Fantastic. We don't have a bit of the filter folded down. If that had happened, that would be a very sad day. We'd have to brew that coffee again. The other thing is you can see there's a couple little dimples in the top there that are from the streams of water coming out of this shower head hitting the top of the coffee. Now maybe next time, even though I can't physically remove this basket from the Fetco, next time, once it finishes its bloom, I might just give it a little wiggle, and we can try to agitate that coffee a little bit so that we get an even extraction. We've got an aftermarket shower head on here, like a little 3D printed thing. It normally just comes with that insert. These are okay. Like they do a reasonable job of like dispensing water over the top of the coffee. But you definitely, if you just have that normal shower head, just want to give it a little jiggle once it's finished the bloom, because you want to make sure that all that coffee is evenly flat at the bottom of the basket and the same depth all the way through, and then the water is going to settle on top and evenly extract. And I'm going to take this coffee, I'm going to chuck it into our reground bin, and I'm going to give this basket a rinse straight away. The quicker you get this rinsed, the easier life is going to be at the end of the day. If you don't clean that, it just starts to taste like all the batches that have ever gone through the machine, all molding into one, and you don't get delicious, vibrant, sweet batch brews. You get old tasting, stale shit. Delicious coffee. I'm gonna make sure the straw's in properly. I can clip this lid on, and then you're like, oh sweet, I'm ready to drink. No, you're not ready to drink. You gotta go like this. Now you're ready to drink. Can't help but think I just need to do that every time I pour coffee. It's good, but it tastes a little bit strong. Let me just check that. I like our coffee at like 1.2. Oh, even stronger, 1.31. We're off the fucking Richter. We can fix this. It tastes delicious. It's sweet, it's well extracted. It's not over or under. It's literally just the brew strength, a little bit too intense. There's a really cool feature on this guy where you can add bypass. So instead of having to add a bit of hot water to this vac pot, I can just do it while it's brewing, and then as a barista, I could be making 1 million flat whites for everybody, come back, and it's done the dilution for me. It's got bypass in it, which is sick. What I mean by bypass is it's the water that's coming out of this brewer is gonna bypass the coffee and not go through the center of the basket. It's gonna go just around the edge, dodge the coffee, and go into the vac pot. So I can add a little bit of water, kind of dilute it a little bit, which would be good for this. Almost 1.4% strength coffee, tasting like a good extraction, super sweet, not over or under, but it's just a little bit strong for my palate. I think that I'd want to have this watered down ever so slightly. My cordial has got too much cordial in it. An easy way to know if you need to dilute your coffee more is just to dilute it with a little bit of water. You don't need much. Yeah, it's better. It's the right strength. We need to bypass. I'm gonna bypass it. I'm also gonna show you the other settings because I've only made 1.5 liters. And if we were in the real world and we were out there making coffee in a cafe, we'd want at least 2.5 liters of this coffee. So I'm gonna make another batch. So I've got batch 1, which is my 1.5. I've got batch 2, which is my warm-up brew. I'm gonna make batch 3, which is gonna be like 2 liters or 2.5 liters. Go into batch 3, right? So batch 3 is gray, which means it's off. It's not gonna appear on the screen. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna straight away turn that on. I'm gonna make this a 2 liter brew. Just set it to 2. I'm gonna make this 5 minutes because I reckon that's where it should be. And we're gonna go full Scott Bowell mode, 7 pulses. Pre-wet percentage, I'm gonna bang that up to 25%. We're gonna set our drip delay to 40 seconds. Bypass. I need to bypass that coffee. I'm gonna bypass it by 10%. And now that is blue because I've turned it on and we've got all the settings that we had there. I'm gonna go back again and I'm gonna go exit and then I'm gonna go save settings and then it's gonna come on and reboot and then it'll show us that batch on there and we can try it and see if we like it. This vacuum pot's gonna keep the coffee hot for hours, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna taste good for hours. General rule of thumb would be after an hour of this brew sitting here, it's probably gonna start to stale a little bit. It's hard flavor to describe, but it just becomes muted and it's not as delicious as it was when we first brewed it. For this brew, it was 60 grams of coffee per liter. We've sold most of it. That's fantastic. I would say brew the size of batch that you think you're gonna sell in 1 hour because that's how long it's gonna last for. When you turn this thing on, starts this loading screen. You gotta wait. Eventually this spinning wheel comes up and as soon as it stops spinning, you touch it for 2 seconds, no longer. Super easy, right? And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and now you're in. Let's start with hot water portions. That's any hot water that's coming out of this spigot. You can set your continuous to time, and then the volumes are just set based on a flow meter. So you can set it to 150, 200 if you wanted to have your hot water for your long blacks coming out of this machine. Settings, which is all the things like the temperature that this is going to brew at. In the past, I've noticed that Fetco's brew a little bit colder than they say that they are. We're going to leave that for now, but I might turn that up to 98 later and make sure it's brewing nice and hot. Unit of measure, which is just turning it from freedom measurements to the rest of the world. Eco mode, which is cool. You can turn the temp of the tank down when it's on eco mode, which is good. You can save yourself a little bit of power. So I've set this to 1.5 litre volume and it'll measure that just through a flow meter. I set my brew time quite fast to 3.5 minutes. I would usually recommend for anything kind of 1.5 to 2 litres to be looking at about 4 to 5 minute brew times. We've just been using that. Number of pulses, Scotty Rao tells you to use 7. I used to say to everyone to use 15. We've kind of split the difference there with 12. Pre-wet percentage. This is a really cool feature. Previously, you could only ever go up to 15% of your total brew as a pre-wet. So that's a volume of your total brew, volume of 1.5 litres, a percentage of that as the bloom. So how much of that volume will be dispensed initially, and then there'll be a pause afterwards. I would say as a minimum, you should use 15%. You could go all the way up to 25. Your pre-wet delay is after it's dispensed that water, how long is it going to wait before it starts to move on to the rest of those pulses. Pours a little bit of water, 15% of the total brew, waits for 40 seconds, and then dispenses the rest of that 1.5 litres over however many increments you want it to do that. And those increments are set in number of pulses. So for this brew, it's going to do 15% of the brew, wait for 40 seconds, and then it's going to do 12 pulses of water over the next 3.5 minutes. And then you've got drip delay. So drip delay is just at the end of the brew. How long is it going to wait before it unlocks this basket for us to take it out and clean up? Pet peeve of mine is like a dirty vac pot with old brew stuck to the inside. It just looks so rank, and it tastes, you can taste it. I can taste it. When I go to your cafe and I have old vac pot brew, yuck. The usual culprits. You're gonna wanna rinse this basket out and make sure it's fully clean. All those little fins will build up with coffee oil if you don't rinse after every brew. I'm gonna wipe that top surface, and then the last thing I'm gonna do as well, I'm gonna go ahead and lock that in there. I'm gonna get a scoop of Fetto coffee machine cleaner, like that much, into there, straw in, brew with my 1 litre brew. So easy to clean. All I have to do is I can just set that and I can go do other jobs that need to be done while that's cleaning. This is what is in a clean vac pot after 2 brews. I know it's not super discolored, but it ain't clear. Clean your shit.